The election of Daniel Francois Milan from the Nationalist Party in 1948 set the stage for the Defiance campaign. This party had a massive social restructuring program, which included the enactment of new apartheid laws such as the Group Areas Act of 1950, which is the geographic movement of Bantu and colored people into separate homelands; the Natives Act, which prohibited movement of Bantu and coloreds and required them to carry a passbook; the Immorality Acts, which prohibited sex outside of marriage between blacks and whites; and the Prohibition of Mixed Marriages Act, which banned marriages between Europeans and non-Europeans. In addition to new legislation, there was a stricter application of existing discrimination legislation. This provided the context for the mounting tide of a popular democratic resistance to the apartheid state in the 1950s. The Defiance campaign consisted of volunteers signing up to agree to be a part of the civil disobedience movement of the Defiance campaign. They defied apartheid laws in Johannesburg and other major city centers. The protesters were beaten and imprisoned for breaking the apartheid laws. This was an example of civil disobedience. The goal of civil disobedience is disobeying or refusing to follow the law or policy believed to be unjust or supportive of injustice, publicly and nonviolently, with the intent of drawing attention to a law and policy and getting it changed. Towards the end, it became militant and radical because the ANC became fatigued with the National Party's resistance to change. Violence became a method to provoke change due to the limited success of civil disobedience in South Africa. The main events and parties were the Daniel Francois Milan's National Party, which was the party instituting apartheid policy, and the African National Congress, which was the party that backed the Defiance campaign. Walter Sisulu was elected Secretary General, and a number of youth leaders were elected to the National Executive, including Oliver Tambo, Sisulu's successor. A Day of the Volunteers occurred on June 22nd and preceded the opening of the campaign. On this day, volunteers signed a pledge to be a part of the Defiance campaign. The first group of volunteers, including Nelson Mandela, Yusuf Dadoo, Moses Katone, J.B. Marks, David Bopap, and Walter Sisulu. These volunteers defied apartheid laws in Johannesburg. A National Action Committee, whose key members were Sisulu, Ismail Kachalia, and a National Volunteer Board, with Mandela as volunteer-in-chief, conducted the campaign. The campaign spread from Port Elizabeth and East London to smaller towns in the Eastern Cape Province, from Johannesburg to a number of centres on the Witwatersrand to Cape Town, Bloemfontein, and Durban. During the last few days of June, 146 volunteers were arrested. In July, 504 were arrested. In August 2015 and in September 2058. The campaign gained momentum until October, but in November, rioting erupted and the number of defiers began to fall. However, by mid-December, an additional 2,334 were arrested, bringing the total number up to 8,057. The government became concerned and reacted with the arrest of national leaders of the campaign in Johannesburg and the Eastern Cape. All were charged under the Suppression of Communism Act with promoting communism, but were released on bail. 4 years later, some of the accused were to be arrested on the charges of high treason, many of which were tried under an indictment covering a period that began on October 1952. Famous leaders such as Nelson Mandela were tried and put in jail for up to 9 months. The campaign did not achieve the desired aim of overturning the apartheid laws. However, it was successful in a number of other respects. The resistance won United Nations recognition that the South African racial policy was an international issue, and UN Commission was established to investigate the situation. The campaign also demonstrated the potential power of African leadership and its organizational skill and